And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Welcome to Live Viviana live stream. And tonight's topic is how to hire the right people to strengthen your teams. So again, thank you so much for finding some time to join us this evening. It's a bit stormy in Melbourne today, so I believe it should be a few of you here tonight because there is no point going to the beach, so you all come and watch the live stream instead. So if you're new to my live show, I'm Jana Martins, and I've recently started my journey as IT recruiter. So hence I've started a new YouTube channel dedicated to IT career in Australia. So again, tonight we're going to talk about how to hire the right people to strengthen your teams. And Ciaran is going to share his valuable tips and real life experience when it comes to strengthening your teams, building your team, hiring new people, and processes around it. So obviously incredibly relevant topic for hiring managers, but also for those who are going through some interview process at the moment, because it will be tips for both sides of the fence tonight. So before I'll pass it on to Ciaran to introduce himself, I just want to remind you quickly that we're going live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So to watch the replays, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, IT Career in Australia. So I'm going live there every Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Melbourne time, with various experts from my network. And we're talking about all these things around IT career, job search, and specifics of IT industry in Australia. So you can also join my meetup group to make sure you get notifications for all the upcoming discussions, or maybe even live events, hopefully in the future. If nothing will change, fingers crossed. And we are going to answer also all your questions from all the platforms. Please make sure to ask as many questions as you want, but please stay on the topic. So yes, we're talking about hiring people to strengthen the teams. And the most active participants maybe even receive a nice surprise at the end of the stream. So please make sure to introduce yourself in the comments. Just say hi, say where you're joining us from, just basically so we know we're not talking with the crickets tonight. So, and that's enough of me. I'm all to Ciaran to tell a little bit about himself. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Ciaran. I'm an Irish Australian delivery coach, and I worked as a practice lead in Seek. Most of my life, I've been doing agile Scrum team management, my professional life, that is. And now I'm really focused on recruitment and the interview process and placing people in teams where they can thrive, both the individuals and the team. And so this is really on topic for me, and I suspect for a lot of other people out there as well.
Like 100%, obviously it's been crazy market recently, so many changes happening. And I guess so many changes happening, not only for the candidates, but also for the companies and how the company can actually attract this, the talent and make sure they, hiring the right people quickly as well. Michael here as usual, but instead of being in the home office, I'm in the office in St Kilda Road. Here we go. And Ciaran, I have a really nice view today as well.
Yeah. Going to try and coordinate with the thunder and lightning so we have real impact with some of the statements.
And it's so exciting actually to see people back in the office. So something different.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's, I guess, dig into it. And I guess before I'll ask you a question, I will also want to ask people who are listening us tonight also, what do you guys think? Like, what's most important in the hiring process? Is it the technical skills or cultural fit? So, the chicken and the egg, yeah? So what do you think, like when you're going through a hiring process, either hiring or applying for the job, so it doesn't matter, but like what do you think, what is more important, technical skills or cultural fit for the company? And I guess Ciaran, so what is how we can find out who's this perfect person for our stream, so for our team, so how can we decide is it the right fit for our team? So big question. Let's, I guess, go step by step.
That's right. Trying to find the unicorn that's just the right person. We all have that long list of things that we'd be able to do everything. If we could only find one person that could stand on one leg and do this and write TypeScript and present. And by the way, could you do our fix our other problems as well? And that creates an opportunity for any candidate. If you can just jump through that shape, hold that pose for one split second, that's exactly what we need. And that's the ordeal that we put all of our candidates through, isn't it? It makes it really hard for the candidates because they see this wall, the big green wall coming towards them, and the challenge. And just because they can hold that shape at that moment in time, is that really actually what you need? So I guess what we're getting at here is this idea of fit a useful idea for us, or is it maybe a misleading idea? Are we chasing unicorns and butterflies when there's other ways that we could approach things?
I really like this, metaphoric example here. It reminds me, exams at uni. Then you like study
Right.
the whole night before,
Oh God.
and you like basically, like get everything, and you come to the exam, just spit it out, and next day you don't remember anything. That
Exactly. And how many people get exam freeze where when the spotlight is put on you, it's like it's fight or flight. And the way I perform when I'm under the spotlight is completely different to how I perform when I'm like, oh, I'm going to sit down and do some good code right now. It's not the same thing. Are interview conditions any representation of the reality of your job, or are they just a performance that we make people go through?
Yeah, and I think you have a great next metaphoric example here.
Right. Yeah.
What's how this cheese related to the interview process?
Right. So cheese is important for any interview process, and I recommend you have a cheese board in the interview. And the Swiss cheese model is probably familiar to any architects out there. The idea is that just like slices of Swiss cheese, there are holes in it, and if you can line them up the right way, you can you can get something through it. But the Swiss cheese model generally applies to preventing things. So if we're talking about COVID, if people are vaccinated, that's a layer. If they've got masks, that's another layer. If they keep social distance, that's another layer. And hopefully the number of COVID virus particles that get through is minimized. So this step by step, let's put up a barrier that's slightly different, and then another interview that's slightly different, and then another interview that's slightly different. That's how we prevent something getting through unless they fit exactly the right shape to go through it. So bizarrely, in our interview process, we're following a process that's designed to protect you from anything that's different from the way you are today or the unicorn that you're trying to chase.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, trying to prevent from people from going through these blocks instead of concentrating on what's, I guess, important for us. So how, like, I guess how we can avoid it, Ciaran, and also I guess because we're talking about particularly strengthening our teams when we're doing the hiring process. How we can actually decide, who do we need in our team? I know we talk about it quite a lot with about forming teams with Sandeep. So if you guys missed this one, it was back in September. We talk about how to create high performing teams. But I guess we're not going to, talk about forming teams right now, but just to get back to this idea of how we can make sure we're strengthening our team when we're hiring.
Yeah. Well, what I'm trying to get away from is I'm trying to figure out how to get away from hiring very specifically for a specific team. And I feel like if you have the opportunity to be hiring for more than one team at the same time, then you open up flexibility and you open up many different variables. So you might find somebody that has a pretty good fit for one team, but you might have to shuffle people around a little bit to make it work. And that seems more complex, but it actually opens up the possibility a lot more than having the Swiss cheese model. So I think it comes from legacy processes where, one manager gets one requisition to hire for one team, and they try to fill all the problems for that team at the time. And when we do that, we close down the opportunities that may be available if we're aware of what the other roles are that are open in the organization, and look for cross-pollination as well. So I guess I'm trying to make things a little bit more complicated because when we narrow it down, we paint ourselves into a corner.
And you have a great example here as well, in terms of the forming team.
Yeah. So the jigsaw model is what we do if we know what the answer looks like. We've got a painting of what the end picture looks like, and we're just building towards it. So we just document exactly what we want, our unicorn PD, and break it up into smaller parts. And once you've got that PD, you just copy paste it for every team, right? So then you've got every team has a scrum master and a product lead and a set of developers and maybe a tester, and that's how you form a team on paper. But we know that doesn't work in practice, and yet even though we know this, we all fall into the same trap again of like reusing the same PD that, as in position description, that worked for the last team, and trying to replicate it into the next team just to simplify our lives.
Especially exciting that this like PD is like 3 years old and
right.
And someone had it on file, and we're like, okay, we already have a PD for this position. Let's just reuse it. We'll just change the headings.
Yeah, and I'll just add a few more bullet points. And if we try and look at it from the candidate's point of view, this long list of requirements, 22 different bullet points, be typical for a PD when you're looking at it from the candidate point of view, and you don't know which ones are really important for this role. So you try to maybe update your resume to match what the PD says, but you could be hitting all the wrong marks, even though you're optimizing for a 2-year-old position description. So how do we engage the candidates in a conversation about what the role might be, and see where they fit and where they maybe have growth as well?
And I guess the other thing we want to mention about this model, it's about finding this identical. Oh my God, I can't even say it. Identical people to build a different team.
Yeah, that's right. Where we say, oh yeah, there's that guy Dave, let's clone him, right? We just need another Dave. And of course, Dave has contextual knowledge that new people couldn't possibly have. And even if you did find somebody that's identical to Dave, get his twin, you're not going to do it a third time. That was a flash of lightning, because that was a really important point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And I guess this is kind of the model that a lot of organizations will use, because if it's worked in one team, why not just to clone it to our future teams and scale this way?
Right. What you want is a team to form around a problem, and it might be an existing team that changes shape because they've got a different problem. Or if you're bringing somebody new in, what's the opportunity for them to add value that you weren't expecting?
And here's the Tetris models coming.
Hey! All right. So this is what I'm suggesting, and it's maybe something different. Unlike a jigsaw, in Tetris, we don't know what's coming next. And in Tetris, we can move the shapes around a little bit. And in Tetris, every time we get a win, the board moves down. Maybe we've built a little bit of technical debt as well. We've got the weird shapes on the sides that are then even harder to fill in. So in a dynamic situation like this, when we're trying to recruit for teams, it makes a lot of sense to work with individuals, because individuals aren't copy-paste, right? They're not clones. So if we can work with the candidates to have a conversation about the problems we're trying to solve, maybe they can advise us as to how they can work on that problem in ways we didn't expect. And what I've done really is I've stolen the Agile Manifesto and tried to adapt it for the recruitment conversation. Working solutions over documentation, rather than saying what we want the person to do, maybe we should share what the problems are that we're working on and see how they approach it, so we can collaborate with them rather than telling them how they should be. And then you never know. Maybe you'll find this person's a great fit for a different team altogether, or maybe they've got a suggestion that you weren't expecting. Even a junior person could have quite fresh eyes when they bring fresh perspectives to your problem, and you get free consulting in the middle of your interview as well.
I guess, my question here would be like, but as you said, it looks like, this one seems simple. This one looks a bit more complicated. How we can get the managers on board with that? Because, obviously we have a HR who used to, kind of a bit of a structure, they don't know much maybe about some technical things. For them, it's obviously much easier to get a PD from like last year and just change the headings. But how we can engage the hiring managers to follow this the suggested model, where they're not just trying to clone Dave, but they trying to look at the people who might be a good fit for this particular team.
Yeah. I, I think hiring managers plural is the answer to this. You know, if we can get more than one hiring manager to be on board, they can back each other up a little bit. Where if the hiring managers understand the needs of their neighboring teams, that way when you conduct one interview with somebody, you're interviewing them for the organization, not just for the team. There's a model where if you're clear in the interviews, whether you're interviewing for fit to organization, fit to team, or fit to the manager, if you walk into the interview before knowing what it is that you're looking for, it's a lot easier. And the shift in thinking that I'd look for in a hiring manager is to not be interviewing, would you work well with me? But interviewing, would you work well with any of the teams in my organization? And once you've got, if the answer is yes, then you've bought yourself time to figure out exactly the right team and exactly the right problem space. But if you're interviewing for a very narrow scope, are you the right person for that team at this moment in time? You're much less likely to find a candidate, and you're limiting your opportunities as well. So that's how I would position it with the hiring managers. Hey, back each other up. There's an opportunity here.
Yep. 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 I really like your suggestions in terms of keeping in mind. So if we, hiring for the manager for the team or for the company, because again, the requirements could be quite different. And again, but okay. So here's another question for you as a hiring manager: how you can shift your thinking from hiring someone for kind of for yourself, for the
Right.
manager, from hiring for the team.
Hiring for teams that aren't necessarily your own team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a tough one, and it does require the hiring managers coming together, and it's not something that we can cookie cutter here. So I've had a lot of conversations with hiring managers where they know who they've got like mind thinking with, and we grow out from there. And we're forming pools of hiring managers who take a particular approach. For example, in the DevOps space or in the more agile end of space, there are similar needs in similar parts of the organization. So it's so often that people just don't know what their neighbors are doing. And if you can create a space where they're having that conversation, because what happens in any organization is there's a generic PD that all the hiring managers use as a baseline, and then but really these are what the things that we need, and that's the conversation we want them to have transparently with each other, so they can start surfacing these opportunities. It takes a little bit of psychological safety to do that, and a little bit of time as well.
Yeah, 100%. So to obviously make sure comfortable to sharing these ideas as well. But that's a whole idea, I guess, of agile. Creating the safe space that people can make the suggestions.
Yeah, exactly. And just being transparent, like advertising the problem out there. Hey, we need somebody who's great at Ruby. Put it up on the wall, and you never know who's got a cousin or a friend or goes to the meetups for Ruby on Rails. It's worth just reaching out and advertising your problems as much as your successes.
Yeah, 100%. So we have a few comments I would like to address, I guess.
Sure.
Michael saying, I believe
Michael.
technical skills can, Michael's here, of course. I believe technical skills can be taught, but cultural fit, whilst maintaining diversity of thoughts, is the more valuable bit. The challenge is to avoid hiring for social fit. Actually, what's the main difference, I guess, Ciaran, what do you think? What's the main difference between cultural fit and social fit?
Culture fit and social fit. Yeah, so culture fit has fallen out of fashion, hasn't it? So when people say, "Oh, the gut feel," the danger is bias, right? And we all know this, but we all fall into the trap where the danger is we hire people that think like us because it's just easier to get along with them, and then you end up with a team full of middle-aged Irish Australians, and you miss out on the diversity of thought, and it's quite difficult to. It's one of these catch-22s because it's invisible to all of us. I wonder. For me, I'm biased. I feel like culture comes first, and we can always learn technical skills. I'll let the cat out of the bag there. The danger of social fit is when you do have a really strong team culture inside your organization, and IBMers all look a particular way. They used to dress a particular way, I used to be an IBMer, and there was a way of doing things in Big Blue, and that's quite excluding of anyone that doesn't fit into it. And even if they're in the organization, they don't feel they can contribute. We know this is the problem, but how do we address it? And we address it by explicitly calling out what our values are and trying to hold ourselves to account to it. So, team values, corporate team values can often be a little bit, the poster on the wall that nobody ever looks at. And an interview is a real opportunity to live, to walk the talk. Do you grade your interviews based on your team values, or is it really the gut feel and that's just something you have to put up with?
Yep. Michael saying, to me, culture fit is they can work well in the team. Social fit is want to hang out with team outside the work.
Right. So you might work well, but not want to hang out.
Yes. And Martin saying culture fit is wrong. Culture unfit is diversity, and culture unfit is diversity and intelligence. There you go. I think we opened the can of worms here in terms of talking what's the difference between culture and social fit.
Right.
Because I guess we're touching all this space of diversity and inclusion as well. But and I guess probably it's a massive conversation, I guess. But some people might feel a bit discriminated, and they feel like, oh, I have all these technical skills, but like why I wasn't hired because like they said I'm not a good cultural fit. So how we can deal with this, Ciaran? What do you think?
Yeah, even the word culture is becoming problematic. It's like, what do we mean by culture fit? Does that mean you have to, I don't know, like football and barbecues? So the language that I've heard recently is around behavior, and it's a behavioral interview rather than a cultural interview. And the questions there are more around, tell us about a problem where you took the lead, or a problem where there was conflict, and how did that play out? So you're trying to create a safe space to talk about how they'd manage different situations, situational leadership or context, rather than what's your favorite football team, which used to be an innocent question, but now we understand how loaded that can be. I don't know if the answer is on this one. I've been learning a lot about culture and behavior recently. It's a tricky one.
Jason saying by culture they mean having a particular set of values. So that's kind of the.
Yeah, I think so. That's not where I was going, but I think that is how it used to be. Culture equals what are your values? Are your values aligned with the organization? Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry, Michael, I didn't see your comment.
It's a massive discussion now about it. Michael said, I disagree with Martin. Cultural fit is important, but ensuring the meaning of culture is not skewed is the important part. Many companies have skewed it towards social fit. And again, I guess coming back to this, what kind of are you watching? Are you watching football and having a barbecue on Sunday afternoons?
Right. I'm sure lots of companies are like that. Having an authentic conversation about it and holding ourselves to account. Sure, I hope that's a lead indicator for a company that takes it seriously in any company. It's too easy to give this kind of thing lip service and then really make the real decision in the corridor, right? So it does take work to be diligent about it. If somebody has the easy answers, let me know.
Here we go. Martin, I would disagree that values can lead to groupthink. We could talk about this forever. Martin and Michael and Ciaran, I think you have to have a coffee after,
Definitely more coffee
to build up on this topic.
Yes.
To be creative, we need also the people, not a filter. Yeah, and I guess that's exactly what we're talking about in terms of this Swiss cheese model, that we don't want to filter people out. We want to bring people, bring people in, depends on what we want. So there's a few more, I guess, things that you wanted to mention, Ciaran, like in terms of what we're looking in the potential candidates, not only based on the, like, again, I'm not going to say cultural fit anymore. What's what sort of things we looking in the candidates that can help us with this process when we're trying to find a great fit for our team or company?
Yeah, I take that comment to heart about when we are explicit about our values, it can lead to groupthink. I would suggest that any organization does need to be explicit about what the values are. It at least gives you a baseline to have the conversation. And if those values, it can be helpful to have those values based on a pre-existing framework, whether it's Gallup strengths or Myers-Briggs. There's any number of ways that you could map it out. And you say, hey, these are the behaviors that we want to see or the values that we want to see. It gives us a framework to map the gaps. And then say, okay, we're looking for people to have these behaviors as well, not just to fit into it, but hey, we have lots of people that are really strategy orientated. Maybe we want some more people that are tactically orientated. And that gives you a framework for looking for the diversity and identifying your gaps. So to the point that somebody mentioned there before, diversity is important. If you've got a team of people that are all strategic and nobody's thinking about the tactical, maybe that's something you want to look for in your next interview or interview candidate, even if they've got weaknesses elsewhere. That's a gap in your cultural framework.
Yes, Martin saying if a value is around openness, diversity, creative, then it's alignment. Coming back, so this is like the Martin and Michael just having a big chat here now.
It's on fire.
I've seen companies say our culture is to work hard and work late. To me, that's a social fit, as you won't get any single parents with that view on the culture.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I wonder, let me be a devil's advocate. Is there room in a company to have both? Is there room to have some people that want to work hard and play hard, but then they disappear? No, they're not available on Friday. Well, you also want people that are steady. They don't work crazy hours and they don't party crazy hours, but you can always rely on them. There's going to be a little bit of friction between those diverse characters, and that's not a bad thing.
Diversity.
There you have it. Yeah.
I wanted to, I guess, come back a little bit in the theoretical part of our conversation, because we want to talk a little bit about the strengths and values. And I think was a few good points there around how we can choose people, not just based on this like technical skills. What else we can take into consideration?
Yeah, the strengths and values. What other things you could take into consideration? You mean like trying to avoid our bias and the gut feel? Oh my goodness, the thunder is going crazy here. If we've been explicit about our what strengths we're looking for, before you walk into the interview, it stops you from having a bias, or it can help you avoid bias by saying, okay, before the interview, I was looking for this and this, but I like this person because we got along, the football team, what have you. And this is how you can hold yourself and your fellow managers to account on. If a different manager comes to me and says, hey, I really think we should hire this person, I could say, okay, show me on the strengths framework, what are the boxes that they ticked, and what are the stories that they told that ticked those boxes. And it gets away from the, so-and-so's a good lad, which is too easy sometimes, I'm not saying that we should police our culture, I'm just saying we make it transparent, we have an open conversation about it, and we hold ourselves to account to these things. There's so much out there that we can't map in a simple way. We just want to make it safe for people to have the conversations.
And I guess the other questions for me would be, like, when you pick those, I guess, strengths and the gaps that you're looking for this team member, how you can identify them, because it's not something you can see straight away.
Right.
You can't do the coding challenge on the on the strengths.
Well,
or values, like how, like what I mean, how do you identify those strengths when you're interviewing someone?
Yeah, I guess you want to create a conversation where the candidate feels safe telling stories, and you can give them a prompt. tell us a story about when things went really wrong for your team, and you can give them a prompt. What was the learning from that, or did anything really change? And what you're looking for there is the way that they responded to the problem. And ideally, if you're doing a great job as an interviewer, you're making it safe for them to talk about failures as well as successes. We had an issue and I tried this change and it actually made it worse. So we stayed up all night and we made it work eventually because I got some help from somebody else. If you've really succeeded then if you've made it safe for the candidates to tell that story. And what you've surfaced then is a story about their grit and their strength as they worked through that. If you're in an interview and the person only ever tells you about how wonderful things were and nothing went wrong, are you really in an interview? You're just creating a formal environment where we try to stand in the weird shape.
Yeah. Coming back to this one.
Yeah. Takeshi's Castle. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the comments as well. Then Michael was just saying 100% give me both types any day. When we were talking about different people who work hard and play hard and people who work more like stable hours. But coming back to those behavioral questions that you can ask people on the interview. So I guess a lot of this is trying to find identify this like growth mindset that you mentioned before.
Right. Yeah. So the growth mindset, which is in the book Mindset by Carol Dweck, we use it a lot in coaching, but it's also something that you can try to surface in an interview where you're trying to see if they're interested in learning new things. If somebody, learned piano as a child, do they still play piano? And it's not a magic formula, but there is really solid science around people that have a growth mindset and the way that changes their career pathing and their behaviors. It's especially important if somebody's taking a slightly sideways step in their career, if they're moving from development into architecture. If that's their only thing and they're deeply passionate about it, great. But one of the indicators might be if they also are really into book clubs or around architecture and have dozens of small little pieces that they're diligently working away towards that growth model. And then hopefully you've had a really authentic conversation with them about things that haven't worked. Well, I thought if I did this course, it would help me in my next career step, and it didn't. That's great, because you've surfaced a story about them trying to grow and having persistence even when it hasn't worked out. I'm not saying the interview should only be about failures, but it's a good indicator if you're creating a good space for that person when they can share those kind of stories.
And I guess, we were talking about, trying to find this, ask these behavioral questions, trying to find this like growth mindset. But how you can actually help the interviewers? Because, a lot of hiring managers could be quite technical people. A lot of them just don't like running interviews in general. So what are your thoughts about that? Like we have a, heavily technical person. They kind of want to, find some for the team, but they really concentrating on the technical skills in the way. So how we can encourage them to ask this question and how we can help them to create this atmosphere on the interview?
Yeah, I just like this idea that, that technical people can't conduct an interview. It's a bit like when people say, oh, I can't draw. It's like, well, of course you can draw, of course you can do an interview. And like any of these things, we start with the ridiculously simple, let's draw a circle, let's draw a square. Wow, you've drawn a stick figure. That's everything we need. And very quickly that you can get into quite complex topics, going through those steps and making it safe. One of the things that the teams find quite confronting is, hey, we're going to do some interviews. Why don't we interview each other? Why would you ask a stranger to do it if you wouldn't do it yourself? If there's 4 people conducting interviews, take a turn in the other seat. And if you can see it from the candidate's point of view, then you've walked in the shoes of the person on the other side of the table. But you're only doing it with colleagues, people that you know. So it's not even as high pressure as it is for the candidates. So I feel like walking in the shoes of the candidate, it's a really good idea. And it really does give you practical experience of like how long each part of the interview step process takes. One thing that I'm always asked for is checklists. I really resist it. Well, they didn't use this word and there were 7 things in the checklist and they only ticked 2 of them. It's like, it can be helpful the first time, but I'd encourage that as a baseline, not as a place to be referring to all the time. So I've kind of resisted this checklist idea as much as I can. Maybe when we're role playing, sure, but when you're sitting in front of somebody, I feel like it's more viable to try and have an authentic conversation than to be looking at the list of 17 different things that they could be saying. Because at the end of the day, you have to make an assessment. They didn't say any of the 17 things in the checklist, but do they demonstrate the growth potential? Do they demonstrate an interest in this company and this industry? Are they just saying what they think I want them to say? Or are they willing to challenge the premise of a question I've asked? Are they asking me questions about the organization? Are they asking qualifying questions before jumping into an answer? Those are the really in-depth things. And with practice, you can get more comfortable doing it. So yeah, interviewers getting comfortable doing interviews, pretty easy. Get in a room, have a go yourself, and you'll actually learn a lot more from being on the other side of the table than following a script.
And I guess we wanted to ask also people who listening us tonight, on which side of the table you were before? Like, were you ever interviewing someone? Were you always a candidate? And if you were interviewing someone before, was it really doubting for you in the first time? So, if you can share some thoughts with us, that would be great as well. So what was, I guess, the biggest challenge for you then you conducted this, first ever interview? Have you mentioned the grit model as well? So we talk about the growth mindset, but there's another model there that I think worth mentioning as well.
Yeah, Grit by Angela Duckworth. It's a wonderful book that talks about perseverance. The Americans call it grit. And it is, again, one of these ideas that sounds woolly and fluffy, but there's actually a really strong scientific foundation for what grit is, how it manifests, and how you can grow it inside your own life. So wonderful book and really useful. It's another one of these meta skills that you can identify in a candidate, especially in this market where it's moving so fast and we're trying to identify the characteristics of somebody that can survive in a changing environment, where if you're in the middle of a Tetris game and you've been hired to work on a particular project, by the time you show up a few weeks later, you could be working on a completely different project. Some people will take that really poorly. Other people will just take it in their stride. And the way it's kind of like an OKR, the way Angela describes it. If somebody has an objective in mind, it's not that they have a roadmap and they follow every single step and they work towards it. It's that they take all the things that they're doing and triage them. Which things will lead me towards what I'm trying to get to? So classically, if you want to train for a marathon, but you're also trying to learn French, maybe you shouldn't be learning French at the same time, right? And maybe you try out some things, and if those fail, you try a new pair of shoes, but you persevere anyway, that's a sign of grit. So the indicators of grit in the graphic there, it's having a goal and sticking with that goal, even when things fail. And that indicates passion, which is surely something that we want in anybody. And the other thing that we're looking for is all these small little things. Grit isn't made up of one big achievement. I climbed a mountain. It's the practice and the perseverance, showing up for training every single day for years before you did the marathon, and staying on point on that purpose. So it's like, look, I did a half marathon this year. It might take me another 2 years, but they're still working towards the same goal and persevering at it. This is a story. If you surface a story like that and it's authentic, it's grit. And how would that manifest in work? You could ask for stories about things that went wrong in work and how did that play out? And if they're thinking about only how it went wrong, that's not great. If they're thinking about how that, we learned this, it was a problem, but we learned how to operate the system better next time, great punchline to a story. And it can be a really good prompt at the end of any interview to ask them, well, what did you learn from that? Even if it's a success, what did you learn from that? And you can see very quickly, some people know exactly what the answer is.
Yep, definitely. And that's a good point. You can ask this question, not even if it's example of failure. You can actually ask this question if it was a successful project. Exactly. It will be even more interesting probably to see what people learn from a successful project, even if it's went all smoothly.
Yeah. I guess what you don't want them to say is, yes, we could take exactly the same plan and implement it again. So maybe you could, but not every time,
And what we have, so Martin saying, great adversity intelligence.
Ooh, that's nicely said. Yeah, I haven't heard that phrase before. So when adversity shows up, how the kind of intelligence you bring to it. Do you go into fight or flight mode, or do you have ways of thinking through the problem? That's kind of a technical way of thinking about it, isn't it? Like, we don't look for them to answer the problem, but for them to have a methodology about how they think through a problem. Yeah, I've seen that in the technical interviews. Different kinds of
Yeah.
intelligence for different kind of situations.
Yeah, and again, it depends, what you need for your team or for your company.
Right. My favorite question is, hey, this is the problem we've got. How would you go about managing this problem, rather than asking them that they're asking them the problems, the solution, and how they would execute the solution you've pre-thought of. How would they help solve the problem for you? I'm not trying to elicit free consulting. I'm trying to see how they would work it through, and how they would collaborate with other people on the problem. Maybe they'd want to whiteboard it with somebody else. Maybe they'd want to do a little spike and try it out. And this applies to people problems just as much as technical problems as well. What's the approach? And if they've never thought about it, okay, maybe that's people problems aren't for them. That's okay too. But at least you've mapped them on your values and behaviors.
Yeah, and again, coming back to this idea, so keeping in mind what we're actually looking for, and like what sort of strengths we're looking for, rather than just going with gut feeling and thinking like, oh yeah, no, maybe this person can't answer this question, doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I've got this idea that we can try different ways of interviewing people if we can bring the candidate with us, and that does require putting them in a slightly more awkward position. So it's got to be fair game on both sides. There's no secrets to this. We can say, hey, we're looking at stories that show your grit or your growth potential. This is what we mean. We can give away the punchline. It's okay. We're not trying to make them jump through the hoops and fit into perfect shapes. We're trying to see if they're a good fit. What if you work in the greatest company in the world and they're the greatest employee in the world, but they're not a great fit? Maybe that's okay, and maybe that's a conversation you can have with them. And maybe they are not a great fit, but they have other potentials that you haven't thought of. If we're open to these possibilities, hopefully we can find more candidates that are not a great fit, but help our teams grow and get stronger. See, I'm falling
And
into
I
the trap
think
of language. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to understand from the candidate's perspective, they need to understand that they don't need to try to fit in, because if they're trying to fit in, they probably won't enjoy working for this company either. So I guess it's also two-way street that sometimes people forget as well. So especially in the current market, I guess candidates trying to get the feeling for the company, for the team culture and everything before joining, because they obviously in IT market they have quite a bit of a choice at the moment. So kind of the table turns, and now you feel like you've been interviewed and you need to answer all this question about your company culture and make people actually excited about it too.
Yeah, well, hopefully they're naturally excited about it, but maybe we need our interviewers to have an elevator pitch ready to go. Hey, this is a great company. So these days, what I'm hearing is that people are actually interviewing the companies that they're being interviewed by. So it is a genuine two-way conversation, even if the companies haven't caught on to that yet. What a great problem to have. You've got candidates that are really trying to interrogate your company because they don't want to come in and realize on day two that it's the wrong choice. If only we could. It's like when you're buying a house. You get 20 minutes to look around and then a 20-year mortgage if you succeed in buying it. So, and it's the same with interviews. You've got 60 minutes, and hopefully the person stays for a long time. But that's a lot of pressure on the interviewers and the candidates. Yeah.
100%, especially if they only met like one person from the team, or like one or two people from the team, or maybe they haven't even met anyone from the team they're going to work with, or only like met a hiring manager and a HR or something like that. So
yeah, the impression, we all make these first impressions in the interviews. So you might never actually work with those people that you did the pair programming with. It can be much harder that way.
Yeah, obviously we can, talk about it forever, but I'm cautious about the time. We're already hitting the 45 minutes mark. I think we have we mentioned everything from here? Yeah, just to summarize everything we said.
This is a great one. This is just a great article. I thought I'd share it with everybody that's here. It's similar to the grit and the grow models. It's how can you hire for culture? These woolly ideas, there are existing models out there that we can use, and there are existing questions we can borrow to identify stories they've got about being really committed to the work they're doing, seeking out new challenges, and feeling a connection with others. So if I was to leave with one thought only, it'd be that the questions that they ask us in the interviews are really the most important things. What are they trying to connect with you? What's of interest to them? Because that's what they want to commit themselves to in their new job. So that was a really lovely article I wanted to share. And it says probably everything I've been saying more eloquently than I can.
Perfect. So guys, I will share this article in the comments as well, the link in the comments. Have a look. But yeah, great point, Ciaran, about the paying attention to these questions that the candidates will ask, because yeah, you can definitely sense from their questions, you can sense what's important for them as well. Yeah. And get the idea, because some people will ask only standard questions that, they Google before what sort of questions you need to ask on the interview, and they would ask these questions.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can almost even if you can smell those kind of questions, right? The questions that people feel like they should be asking. And it takes away from having a real conversation with people. Something I haven't figured out is how can we make people feel more comfortable and safe to have frank conversations, especially in diversity. We try to always have diverse interview squads, interview teams, but you never know what the match is. I can't only have Irish people interviewing Irish people. So we just try to mix and match as much as possible.
Yes. So that's definitely a challenge.
And Michael has a really great comment, which you mentioned earlier, Jana. I'm emphasizing growth mindset. And maybe I'm biased towards people that are similar to me. There is a space for people that I want to be the best person on this specific thing, and leave me alone. That there's nothing else that I want to be into. Absolutely. There's almost a catch-22 there. If you're being diverse, you should be open to people that don't want. Well, maybe if I'm taking a growth mindset, I should be open to people that don't have a growth mindset. For sure.
And yeah, and I guess we're coming back to that model of that you mentioned before in terms of what's a good fit for this particular team. Instead of trying to have all these people with number 2, it's all these people with the growth mindset. Yeah. And number 3, it's all these people who focus just on one task. So, but we need to make, again, it's about this diversity and again, agility in terms of, yes, we might need the person who just loves the TypeScript, doing everything in TypeScript, and the TypeScript the only thing he wants to do for the rest of his life. And nothing wrong with it, because we really need someone who's really good with the TypeScript. But again, coming back to what our requirements are for the team, for the company, or for the manager.
Yeah. And even those people, that there will be change over time. And is that a fit? Sorry, oh my God. Is there an opportunity inside the company for that person to grow at the speed that they're comfortable at, to do the things they want to be doing? Usually there is, but I would suggest it's better to be upfront at the beginning about what that person's interests are. Some people just want to move through a role and into the next project as fast as possible. Other people want to stay and get to know the domain better. That's worth cherishing too.
Yeah, and exactly, good point. Can the company accommodate it? Can the company be sure that will be enough work for this person in a few years? That you can't guarantee it, but at least kind of have a bit of a idea if it's going to happen if it's going to stay this way in a few years. Yeah. Now, we can't predict anything with coronavirus these days, but
Oh my God.
but at least get some sort of idea around it to make sure that because I guess that's another big problem, the over promising.
Right. Yeah. It would really show courage if any candidate said something like that. It's almost like trading off one for the other. Wow, that they're really committed to what they're focused on. You know,
Yeah.
but if somebody's able to have a courageous conversation like that, I would call that a win on the part of the interviewer, because you've succeeded and make it safe for them to say it, as well as for the candidate, because maybe they've just dodged a bullet. If they're okay, but there isn't an opportunity to do TypeScript for the next 5 years. Sorry, great that there are other places where you can do that.
Yep. Cool. So we're coming to the 15 minutes mark. Guys, if you have any last question to Ciaran, please pop in the comments so we have a time to take one more question. So before I let Ciaran go, I just want to remind you, obviously, that I'm going live every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. So we're already in December. Christmas is almost there. So I'm actually going to run just only one more live stream next Wednesday. So it's the last one for the year. We're going to talk with Rishabh, and we're going to talk about how to choose your cloud career path. So basically, raising up some questions around the multi-cloud and stuff. So should you concentrate on only one cloud and be expert, and do Azure for next 5 years? Or should you try to do different clouds and, be a multiplier expert? The questions you should ask yourself when you think about how to choose your cloud career. So that's something we're going to talk next Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And as I said, it's will be our last live stream for 2021. And we're going to start the live streams in February 2022. So if you guys have any suggestions in terms of the topic you would like to discuss, maybe you have some guest speakers you would like me to invite, please make sure to get in touch with me, comment below, send me a message. Would love to hear your suggestions. I think we have one more question. Martin's asking, what will you do different after this conversation? Is it that I'm just trying to think which conversation it's related to? What we're talking about before? We're talking about.
I know what I'll do different. I'll reflect on the assumptions that are baked into my interview templates and approach, and to try and see who am I blocking out of the conversation, whether they're people that don't want to grow, or people that have a different tack. Just want to make sure that we're open to any opportunity that comes. That's what I would take it from it.
Yep.
Yeah, nice question,
Martin. The whole conversation. Yeah, the whole conversation.
Awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much for all your questions, guys. So as a giveaway, I think it's nice answer. I guess the usual giveaway that we do on a live stream is it's 30 minutes coffee chat with Ciaran to continue this conversation and do a bit of networking. I think it's obvious who's getting this coffee chat with Ciaran today.
Definitely.
So who's the winner, Ciaran? Who's going to have a coffee chat with you?
I think Martin's got some challenging questions for me, for sure.
So it looks like you definitely can continue this conversation about the cultural and social fit online. I think there definitely will be some, great conversation. Martin, I make sure I connect you with Ciaran on LinkedIn if you haven't done it so. So everyone else who've been listening to us tonight, again, don't be shy to reach to Ciaran on LinkedIn or reach to me as well. Reach out to me if you have any further questions or, questions, answers, suggestions, anything. Please make sure to connect with both of us on LinkedIn. And okay. So now to put you on the spot, Ciaran, what's your favorite inspirational quote to finish this live stream tonight?
Oh, no, I don't have it word for word, but there's an Emerson quote that you can learn something from everybody that you meet. no matter who it is. That is my favorite quote.
100%. 100%. So you definitely can find something to admire as well in each person.
Definitely. Thank you very much, Yana. This is great.
So I was just get so excited about the last quote that I forgot what I was going to say. I remember what I was going to say. Guys, if you enjoy this conversation and you would like us to continue, make sure to like this video. Of course,
Yes.
I needed to finish it with some, a bit of, obvious stuff. So please, if you enjoy our discussion, if you love what Ciaran had to say about, hiring the right people and strengthen your teams, please make sure to like this video, to connect with us on LinkedIn. It encouraged me to keep going and bringing more various experts from my network to share their knowledge. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and join my meetup group. You know everything you need to do. So thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Make sure that you can learn something from every person you meet. And I wish you a great Wednesday evening. Thank you, Ciaran, and see you everyone next Wednesday.
See you.